Frank Klose, our Phillies Insider for 97.3 ESPN.com. Opening up the Phillies mailbag, they lost in a shutout 4-0 last night, despite a good performance by Jake Thompson. Frank, how you doing?
I'm doing well, guys. How about yourselves?
No Mike Gill, so we're in charge, Frank. So look out, buddy. Here we go.
Bring it on.
So, Frank, I want to start with the game last night real quick because Jake Thompson finally had a solid start. He only gave up 2 runs over 7 innings, but yet the offense decided not even to show up. And it seems like Roark of the Nationals has the Phillies number all year. Every time they've played him, they just can't do anything.
I actually really like Tanner Roark. I think he's one of the better young starters in the game. So in some cases, there's really no shame in losing to a good pitcher. And partially, I can't feel too bad for Jake Thompson. Every pitcher gets squeezed once in a while, but had he been pitching better all along, he would have a W by now that reflects this start. So Thompson's still got a lot to learn and a lot to improve upon, but unfortunately, when you do face a good starter, sometimes that's the result.
Well, Frank, let's get into the mailbag. And, of course, to do the mailbag, we take the questions every Monday. Then we talk about them on Tuesdays in the Sports Bash at 97.3 ESPN.com. And Nick wants to know, who will the Phillies call up on Thursday when the rosters expand?
Yeah, it's hard to believe Thursday is already September 1st, and the Phillies will get to add some players when the roster expands to the full 40-man roster. However, I think we're not going to see anybody that exciting, at least not yet. Now, if you look around the 40-man roster the Phillies have, they have some arms that I think can help the Phillies immediately. I think we're going to see Jake Thompson get shut down pretty soon. We're going to see Vince Velasquez get shut down pretty soon. And even right now, you can tell that a lot of the young arms are just plain tired. So I think they're going to bring up some of their 40-man roster pitching that won't necessarily affect the playoff races down at AAA Lehigh Valley and AA Reading. Now, both teams are headed to the playoffs. So the Phillies probably want to let those any prospects sort of follow the run that their team is on. And I think right now in the immediate interim, we're going to see the likes of Elvis Araujo, Luis Garcia, Dalier Hinojosa, maybe Phil Klein. Although Phil Klein's pitching well, they might try to ride him a little bit into the playoffs at AAA. Colton Murray. You might get a look at that Patrick Schuster that the Phillies recently claimed. And when he gets off suspension, Alec Asher, who I thought was pretty much going to be done for the season, he may end up making a start or two because they're going to be shutting these guys down, and they need perhaps him and David Buchanan to kind of pick up some of the slack. So you have those guys that you might be on there. It looks like Andres Blanco is going to rejoin the team. He probably could have been activated now or so, but you might as well just wait till the rosters expand a little and, makes it a little bit easier so you don't have to cut anybody. And then maybe down the line you'll see somebody like Cody Ashe return. He could come sooner than later. And Darren Ruff is going to be an interesting one. He's still on the 40-man roster. The Phillies really either need to bring him up or cut him. They're going to need some 40-man roster spots. So this might be the time that the Phillies either give him one last shot in the big, or maybe they just cut bait with him. Who knows? They may have promised Darren Ruff that he'd get some playing time. And then, the Phillies are going to want to add a third catcher at some point. If they want to leave the prospects alone at AA and AAA, Andrew Knapp at AAA and Jorge Alfaro at AA as they do those playoff runs, you might see somebody like Logan Moore, who was with the team in spring training and is generally seen as a pretty good backstop. But if they pull up Logan Moore, they're going to have to cut somebody because the 40-man roster is full. And when Alec Asher returns from his suspension, they're going to have to cut somebody. So the Phillies are going to start feeling that roster squeeze, and then even beyond that, if they're going to add some more players, perhaps some prospects like Nick Williams or J.P. Crawford, if they go that route, they're going to have to cut somebody else. So a lot of roster decisions are going to start having to be made in the real near future. But I think for now, they're going to let the playoff teams, AA and AAA, do what they can in the playoffs, and they'll just bring up some bullpen arms we've seen already.
We're talking with Frank Klose, and the Phillies mailbag is open as we talk Phillies baseball. And Frank, Steven would like to know what your thoughts are on Roman Quinn. Would you try to trade him because he can never stay healthy, Steven seems to think?
Yeah, the Roman Quinn situation is really unfortunate. We were just talking about him last week, and since then, on a wild pickoff throw, he got hit in the head, and now he has a concussion and is on the disabled list. So very unfortunate that Roman Quinn seems to get injured rather regularly. So, that may have actually cost him his September call-up at some point, but we'll have to see how he's doing. The concussions, depending on how severe it is, you might just want to leave him alone, or who knows, maybe it's a slight concussion and he'll be back. But the fact remains that the guy keeps getting hurt. Now, the one thing I have to say about that is that if you look at his injuries, and he seemed to have a lot of different ones. He had an Achilles injury, like Brian Howard had, although he was a lot younger and it seemed to heal a lot quicker. So he had the Achilles, and he has the concussion now. He's had a strained oblique. He's had a hamstring. I believe he's had a hip flexor too. But one thing about all these injuries are he doesn't have one injury that just keeps coming back. So you got to wonder if is this just a string of bad luck, or is it just is every part of his body just going to succumb to injury at some point? So I think if the Phillies if they can get him up here in this, if he's healthy enough and get him up here now, they can really start to decide what to do. I think it could be Odubel Herrera who gets traded in the offseason if the Phillies are feeling comfortable enough with Quinn's health. As I think we were saying just last week, Quinn seems to have an edge on Herrera for speed, for defense. Quinn's a switch hitter, which certainly is an advantage over Herrera, who just hits left-handed. So if the Phillies can keep him healthy, I think he's got a shot. So a lot will be told to us. I think even if he can make it up this fall, he'll go down to spring training. He'll probably spend a good chunk of spring training. And Herrera actually could still be moved. I mean, the Phillies do have Aaron Altair, who is more than capable in center field, who could be the backup plan if Quinn isn't ready. So I would not be shocked if Herrera is moved. I think they're going to hold on to Quinn. I don't think they're going to look to trade him, especially right now while he's perhaps at his lowest value because he's hurt. But I think they still have high hopes for him, and hopefully this string of what hopefully is bad luck will soon be past him, and he can play for the Phillies.
Frank, before we get to the next mailbag question, I wanted to ask you, I read a report recently that said that the Phillies are considering having Odubel Herrera spend the winter in winter ball, basically working on playing the corner outfield spots. I want to get your thoughts on that.
I think his value is strongest if he's in center field. Usually the corner outfielders, usually traditionally, and again, you don't have to do everything the traditional way, but usually your left fielder is somebody who has some power, and usually your right fielder is the guy with the strongest arm on the whole team. He doesn't have that strong an arm, and which makes me think, yeah, he can make the plays in right field, but I don't know if you want to, especially when you have arms in the organization like Nick Williams and Dylan Cousins who can throw the ball a long way from right field. Even Aaron Altair is a pretty decent right fielder. And so I don't see how much value he has there, and certainly he's not a home run hitter in left. So and the Phillies do have some hopefully power prospects coming up through the system that hopefully one of them sticks and can hit with a little bit of power. So I'm just not really sure about that because I don't think making Odubel Herrera a right fielder is going to give him that much value. I mean, you look at a guy like Ben Revere who did not have an arm, and the Phillies put him in a corner outfield spot, and that was pretty much less than ideal. And I think we see now with the Nationals, they aren't playing him in center field, and they don't want to tie up a corner spot with him either. So we don't want him to necessarily be a Ben Revere if you're the Phillies, So I would be cautious to do that.
Going back to the mailbag, Richie wants to know, why do the Phillies keep playing Ryan Howard? It is impeding the growth of Tommy Joseph. That's Richie with that question.
Yeah, I think this one's a question which I don't really think what they're doing right now is that big a deal. If you remember that Tommy Joseph wasn't supposed to be in the picture at all, and if you look at his numbers, he hits best against left-handed pitching. If you look at Ryan Howard's numbers, he hits best against right-handed pitching. I think the Phillies are actually doing a good job in getting Tommy Joseph some at-bats against right-handed hitters. And if you look at how much he's actually played, Tommy Joseph has had a majority of his at-bats against right-handed pitchers. And if you compare his batting averages, he is definitely much better against left-handed pitching because he's hitting 276 against lefties and he's hitting 241 against righties. And kind of what the Phillies have done by pairing him with Ryan Howard and splitting this playing time, a lot of people don't realize it, but the Phillies have more home runs from their first base position than any team in baseball, and which does sound kind of surprising. Now, this could have changed since last night. I didn't check the box scores, but the Phillies have 33 home runs from the first base position, and that doesn't count when perhaps Howard or Joseph have hit home runs as pinch hitters or designated hitters. But the Cleveland Indians are one behind at 32. The Toronto Blue Jays and Baltimore Orioles have 31 at first base, and the Phillies have 33. So I think they've done a nice job maximizing the value of that first base position, and that's even including the time that Darren Ruff got those at-bats at first base, and the Phillies even played Andres Blanco at first base a few times when they were kind of looking for some right-handed offense out of the first base position. So in terms of Joseph's development, I think he's getting a good amount. He's not facing every right-handed hitter, but I think he is getting a good amount of playing time against right-handed pitching. And really the job is for him for next year. It's for his job to lose, essentially, because Howard isn't going to come back. What the Phillies might do is they might try to find a player who can hit from the left side and can play some first base. Maybe somebody who could hit from... Now, basically, they could sign somebody that's Cody Ashley if Cody Ashley had worked out, who could play some corner infield positions and quarter outfield positions. And who knows, if Ashley steps up, maybe that is him next year who gets some of the left-handed at-bats at first base. But I think they're going to try to complement Joseph with somebody in the future, give him his days off against some righties, perhaps the tougher righties. And I think he'll be in good shape to really take over the position, though, next season.
He's our Phillies Insider Frank Klose. You can read his work on our website at 973ESPN.com or follow him on Twitter at Frank Klose with a K, Klose 973 on Twitter. And Frank, I did see a couple things that stuck out in my mind last night from the box score. One of them was that there was only 16,000 people was the announced attendance. I'm sure it might have felt less than that in the ballpark. And the other thing that jumped out to me is that a loss tonight would put the Phillies 12 games under 500. They haven't been that bad since June 27th, 53 games ago. Are they sinking faster than me in a pool?
Well, I think the attendance thing is kind of usual for this time of year. Really, if you look at it, people are either starting school or their last week of vacation, and they're not around. So usually I think, at least just my informal observation over the years, this week has been a kind of a slow week in terms of attendance regularly. But yeah, I think the Phillies are going to trail off a little bit more before it's all said and done because, they've already lost a couple of their nice young pitching prospects for the year, of course, in Nola and Eflin, and they're probably shutting down Velasquez and and Thompson, as we just said, and they're gonna throw a lot of innings by people that probably don't make the Phillies team next year. So I would expect it to slide a little bit more. My hopeful, I guess on the optimistic side of things, my prediction for the Phillies is 75 wins. They're on pace for just below that. They might be around 70 when it's all said and done, just because they're just going to have to swallow hard and deal with some of these innings thrown by some of these pitchers that fans probably don't want to see.
Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Frank Klose answers the Phillies mailbag every week. And Frank, we look forward to next week. And, hopefully the Phillies won't do anything crazy by the end of the week, right?
Yeah, I don't think anything crazy is going to happen. Still an outside chance that they make another trade. But, that would be the Peter Borges type most likely if it's anything at all. But that's about all we're looking at.